There's one seat at the leadership table I watched a good coach struggle with for the better part of a year, and the trouble was her diagram. Her skill was fine. She kept trying to figure out who this executive was fighting with. Was it engineering this week, finance the next? And the answer kept slipping out of her hands because she was asking a question the room couldn't answer. This person wasn't fighting one peer. The friction was coming from everywhere at once, from every direction at the same time, and every tool she had was built to read a fight between two people. The seat belongs to the chief product officer, and the reason this executive earns a whole video to themselves, separate from every other pairing we've worked, is that the shape of their collision is different in kind from everyone else's at the table. The difference goes all the way down to the geometry. The shape itself is genuinely other. So before I name what's going on, sit in that coach's confusion for a second, because it's a useful confusion. Every instinct you've built across this module tells you to find the two parties and decompose the pair. With the CPO, that instinct quietly fails you, and the cause sits in the lens itself. It was built to read two parties grinding at the rim, and this seat lives at the center. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to give you the diagram she was missing, show you the spokes where the heat concentrates, walk you through the highest stakes one by name, and leave you clear on what your job is and what it isn't when this executive sits at the center of the room. Picture a bicycle wheel, a hub at the dead center, spokes running out from it to the rim that circles the whole thing. Hold that image because it's the most useful single picture in this entire module for the seat we're talking about. Every other collision you've studied lives out on the rim. 2 points on the outer edge, 2 spokes where they near each other, grinding side by side. Engineering and finance, legal and marketing, operations and finance, peer-to-peer, 2 formations scraping at the edge of the wheel. And you read every one of those bilaterally because that's honestly what they are. 2 parties, 1 pairing. The 4-part anatomy decomposes it cleanly every time. The CPO does not sit on the rim. The CPO sits at the hub, at the exact center, where every single spoke runs inward and converges. Sit with what that means geometrically. From the hub, you are connected to every point on the rim at once. There's no spoke you're not touching. Engineering, finance, legal, operations, marketing, the whole team. The CPO has a line running straight to each of them all the time, simultaneously. That's why the coach in my story kept getting lost. She was standing at the rim looking for the one spoke the CPO was grinding against. And from where the CPO actually sits, there is no one spoke. There's the whole wheel. Once you move your own vantage point to the hub and look outward, the confusion dissolves and a different shape comes into focus. And that shape is what the next minute is about. Let me make the structure concrete because the geometry is what changes your whole read. Picture a CPO I've sat across from. She walks into Monday's leadership meeting having decided the company is shifting toward a subscription model. That single decision she set as direction. Now watch what happens to it as it leaves her mouth. Engineering hears it and immediately calculates the rebuild cost against a build plan that's already full. Finance hears it and runs the revenue impact against this quarter's targets. Legal hears it and starts cataloging the contract terms that have to change. Operations hears it and braces for years of new support load. Marketing hears it and starts reworking the story they tell the market. One direction, set from the hub, and 5 functions push back at the same moment, each through its own formation logic, each from a completely different angle. That's the thing a bilateral read can't hold. If I told you the CPO was in conflict with engineering, you'd reach for the 4-part anatomy and decompose that pair. Fine, but she's not in conflict with engineering. She's in conflict with everyone, structurally, because she directs all of them and she depends on all of them at once. She can't ship without engineering, can't fund it without finance, can't sell it without marketing, can't survive it without legal and operations. The dependency runs in every direction. So when you try to read this seat as one spoke grinding against another, you flatten the actual shape of what's in the room. The CPO directs and depends on the entire rim. That dual relationship, both giving the orders and needing the cooperation, is what makes the hub its own kind of collision. 6 spokes run out from the CPO hub, one to every other function, but they don't all run hot. 4 of them are where you'll spend most of your attention, and each one has a signature you can learn to recognize on sight. The first is the CPO against tech. The pattern there is what and why colliding with how. The CPO carries the vision and the reasons. The CTO carries the buildability. The friction that hides underneath is technical debt. To the CPO, it reads as a velocity constraint, an annoying drag on shipping speed, while to the CTO, it's a compounding product risk that will eventually take the whole thing down. The second is the CPO against finance. Conviction meets precision. The CPO is willing to spin credibility ahead of the evidence because that's the job. Finance wants the numbers to hold before the commitment. At its sharpest, this becomes the Kodak pattern, and I'll give that one its own slide because it's the highest stakes collision on the wheel. The third is the CPO against legal, innovation against prevention, ship and learn running straight into the gatekeeper. The danger here is a spiral. When the CPO gets tired of the gate, she starts routing around legal instead of integrating their risk scanning. And that's where things quietly get dangerous. The fourth is the CPO against operations. Iteration against stability. With a long tail I'll come back to. 4 spokes, 4 signatures. Learn these and you've got most of what runs hot at the hub. The Kodak pattern is the one I want you to carry out of this video above all the others because it's where a budget argument turns out to be a bet on whether the company survives. The name comes from the obvious place. A company that read the shift to digital, understood it, and still couldn't fund the bet against its own film business hard enough or fast enough because that business was paying everyone's salaries. In the room, it lands like this. The CPO sees a market shift coming that threatens the revenue model the company runs on today. Reading that shift early and spending credibility to act on it before the evidence is undeniable is exactly her job. If she waits for proof, the window closes. Across the table, finance is protecting the bread and butter, the revenue that pays the bills this quarter and keeps the lights on. And protecting that is exactly their job too. Both of them are right. That's what makes this one existential rather than just tense. There's no villain to coach toward the light. So your move as the coach is to stop letting the fight live on the budget line where it can't be resolved and take it underneath. The surfacing question I'd carry into that room goes something like, what is this team actually deciding when it decides how much to fund this bet? because the number on the page is standing in for a much larger question. Are we willing to bet against our own present to buy a future? Name that, and the team can finally work the real decision instead of arguing about a line item. Now, the two spokes that run cooler, because part of reading the hub well is knowing where you don't have to lean in as hard. 6 spokes total, 4 are hot, and these last 2 carry less heat for reasons worth understanding, since the reason tells you something about formation. The CPO against marketing is product truth meeting audience narrative. The CPO is anchored in what the product actually is and does. Marketing is anchored in the story that will land with the audience. That sounds like a recipe for constant friction, and yet it stays moderate. The reason: marketing is the most adaptive formation on the team. It updates fastest. When the product truth shifts, marketing reshapes the narrative around it more readily than any other function reshapes its position. The flexibility built into that formation absorbs a lot of the collision before it ever heats up. The CPO against HR is velocity meeting people impact. The CPO is tuned to speed, pivot, reprioritize, move. HR is tuned to what those pivots cost the people who absorb them. You'd expect that to be loud, and it's actually low in direct friction, and the reason is structural and a little sobering. The human cost of all that pivoting doesn't land on HR directly. It lands on engineering and operations first, the teams that get whipsawed by the reprioritizations, and only reaches HR secondhand, mediated after it's already done its damage downstream. So the friction is muffled by the distance the cost travels before HR feels it. Quiet, but real. I promise to come back to the operations spoke because it carries a blind spot that's so quiet it almost never gets named in the room, and naming it is one of the more useful things you can do as the coach. Watch how the CPO works. She keeps pivoting. Each reprioritization is a small, sensible bet. From where she sits at the hub, every single one of them makes sense. This feature over that one, this market first. Ship the new thing, learn, adjust, ship again. Reasonable every time, in isolation. And from the center of the wheel, that's the whole story. She launches, she watches adoption, she moves to the next bet. But operations doesn't live at the hub. Operations lives downstream in the years that come after the launch, the maintenance, the support load, the integrations that have to keep running long after the CPO's attention has moved 3 pivots down the road. Every small, sensible reprioritization leaves a residue back there, and those residues pile up into a long tail of operational debt that the CPO genuinely cannot see. The part I want you to hold: the CPO is as deaf to operational debt as she is to technical debt. Same mechanism exactly. Both kinds of debt are invisible from the hub because the hub is tuned to the launch and the adoption curve, and the cost of both lives in the unglamorous downstream years she never looks at. When you're in that room, part of your work is making the downstream audible to the center. So what does all this geometry change about how you actually coach? When you're working a team whose center of gravity is product, and that's a preview of the center of gravity work coming in Module 5, the hub sets the default for the whole room. The CPO's formation becomes the gravitational center that everything else organizes around, which means you watch the hub as closely as you watch the rim, because what the CPO's formation amplifies and what it quietly discounts shapes the entire conversation before anyone else opens their mouth. The specific blind spot to watch for is this. The CPO tends to hear every other function's concern as a product input rather than as a legitimate problem in its own right. Legal raises a risk, and it gets filed as a constraint on the product. Operations raises the maintenance load, and it gets filed as a cost of the product. Finance raises the revenue threat, and it gets filed as a number to manage. Each function's deepest concern gets reframed as raw material for the product decision. And that reframing decides whose voice gets structurally discounted, who gets heard as a partner, and who gets heard as an obstacle. And the discipline, because this is where coaches go wrong at the hub, your job is to surface the spokes so the team can work them. You make the friction visible. You name the pattern. You draw out the discounted voice. What you do not do is adjudicate the CPO's direction or set the team's priorities. You're not there to decide whether the subscription bet is right. You're there so the team can decide it with everyone actually in the room. Your work before we move on, and I want you to actually draw this one with a pen on a piece of paper rather than holding it in your head, because the act of drawing it forces a precision that thinking about it lets you skip right past. Bring to mind a product-centered team you coach now, or one you could imagine coaching, or even one you've watched closely from the outside. Put the CPO at the center of your page. That's your hub. Now draw a spoke running out to each of the other functions: tech, finance, legal, operations, marketing, HR. 6 spokes, 1 wheel. Then mark the 4 you'd watch first. You already know the usual suspects from this video. Tech, finance, legal, operations tend to run hot. But I want you to mark them for this specific team, not for the abstract case. Maybe in your team, finance is quiet and marketing is at war. Trust what you actually see over what the model predicts. And then the question I most want you to sit with, the one that does the real work: which spoke does the team itself never name? Look at your wheel and find the collision that's clearly live. You can feel it when you think about the room, but that nobody in that room ever says out loud, the one that runs underground. That silent spoke is almost always where the most coaching value is hiding, precisely because it's the one the team has agreed, without agreeing, not to look at. Hold onto your wheel. In the next unit, we stop cataloging and you read a live collision in real time.